I got to go to the Junior World Championships in Greece. It's the gross misunderstanding of how talented you are until you get into that bigger pond. My first match is this kid from Korea who's on both the junior and the senior national team. This dude in my entire career, I've never been beat up that bad. And it was like that guy beat me like a drum for a solid 6 minutes. I remember whenever I came home, my parents did my parents and my coach basically had the conversation of like, hey, look, like you've made a national team. If you call it a day, nobody's gonna say a thing. And I just remember as a 14-year-old kid just getting really pissed off about it. I've got a pretty rebellious streak in me in that, not in a negative way, but in a somebody tells me I can't do something, like the first thing I want to do is go, all right, I'm gonna prove this person wrong.
Competition.
Welcome back to FURYCAST.
Also, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and of course, smash the bell for notifications.
On today's show, I have a man of rare distinction. He is an Olympian. Please welcome on FURYCAST today, Mr. Stephen Lambdin.
Hey, man, how you doing?
So where are you at now? We met briefly several years back at one of your seminars. And I believe you were in the Dallas area at that time, or am I misremembering?
Yeah, no, I was born and raised in Dallas, went to college in California, spent some time in Oklahoma, then Colorado Springs, and now I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina out here with National Academy.
Man, I hear Charlotte's beautiful.
Um, Depends on the time of the year, right? Right when the leaves start changing and everything, gorgeous, but there are some days that honestly, it's actually a lot like Houston, hot and swampy, right? But on the bright side, the food's good.
Down home Southern cooking?
Yeah, down home Southern cooking. There's a surprisingly large Asian population, so like there's a lot of good Korean food, a lot of good Vietnamese stuff like that. So wouldn't necessarily think of Charlotte when you think of that.
Not at all, but hey, welcome to America, man. We're the melting pot. Speaking of
Right.
of America, you are an Olympian, and we'll get into all that, but I'm really interested in your journey, what led you there, and you know, what are the events that took place to land someone first in the martial arts, but then at the highest levels of competition. So take a few minutes before we get started. Tell the people who you are, what you do.
Yeah, so my name is Stephen Lambdin, 2016 U.S. Olympic team member in the sport of Taekwondo in the heavyweight category, so over 80 kilograms. Like I said, born and raised Dallas, Texas area, went to school in California, spent some time in Oklahoma, Colorado Springs. Now I'm out in Charlotte at the USA Taekwondo National Academy, where I'm the current director of athletic development for USA Taekwondo, 2024 Olympic team coach, and assistant resident athlete coach out here at the National Academy. So been around the block a little bit. Got started in Taekwondo when I was a kid because I wanted to be a Ninja Turtle. And it was my birthday, and there was a Taekwondo school across from the restaurant we were at, and it just happened to be a Taekwondo school that did competitions. When my parents signed me up, they did the typical Taekwondo or martial arts school promo of like, oh, sign up for 3 months, get a free uniform. And when they did it, they did the whole like, oh yeah, he's going to do it for a week and he's going to get bored. Like, let's just get it out of his system. And frankly, a lot of money later and a lot of time later, it turned into not just an athletic career, but an actual career afterwards, which what I like to tell people is the first 7 years that I was competing, I'd win every tournament, state, whatever you threw me in, I'd win. And for the first 7 years, I'd go to U.S. Nationals every year and I'd lose my first match, to the point that even my parents were like, hey man, like, why don't you try golf? Like, oh, I hear tennis is fun. Like maybe Taekwondo's not for you. And so the first year that I was eligible for the junior national team, went from losing my first match at nationals every year to winning 6 matches in a row to make the team. No clue what happened that day, but things just kind of started falling together, and I assume I got tired of losing. Flash forward a couple of years later, youngest youngest male in Team USA history to make the senior national team, made the team on my 17th birthday. And yeah, it's pretty much been a roller coaster ever since, traveling with the national team in some form or fashion, in some capacity since 2002. Been on pretty much every kind of national team Team USA has, juniors, under 21, Pan Am Games, World University Games, Olympic Games, World Grand Prix. Came in fourth place at a World Grand Prix final. I think the highest I was ever ranked in the world rankings was 4 or 5. So pretty much been around the block.
Man, that's pretty concise. You've done this a lot, huh?
Yeah, for sure. Oh, it's not the first time I've been asked that. So I know some of the highlights to hit.
But no, that's actually perfect. It really is. A couple things stand out to me. One is, I'm a filmmaker. That's my feature film up there, Lion Killer. It's a Brazilian jiu-jitsu movie. But I'm always amazed at how many people got into martial arts because of some kind of film or television.
Yeah.
In this case, I guess a cartoon. The power.
Yeah, I mean, I say Ninja Turtles. Honestly, you could debate it.
Power
Ninja
Rangers,
Turtles, Batman, Karate Kid,
okay.
pretty much all three.
Wasn't Power Rangers?
I think Power Rangers came a little later for me.
Okay.
7, 8. I had already been bit by the bug at that point.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I grew up at the time when Bruce Lee was big in the 70s, but I was right about that, probably 9 or 10 year old when Karate Kid came out. And
Yeah,
that
that's
was
how
just
they
like,
get you.
it was just like, man. So excuse me. So you get started on I'm a jiu-jitsu and MMA gym owner, and we have Taekwondo schools in the area, and I'm a Taekwondo black belt. That's my Taekwondo black belt back there. I started in ITF style. Did you start in WTF
Nice.
or ITF?
Yeah, WT. Yeah.
No. And so yeah, I'm in competition with a lot of the 3-week $49 with a free uniform.
Yeah.
And that's how you came in, right?
Yeah, I mean, in fairness, it might be the best marketing ploy since like 99 cents, right? Like
Yeah.
it's hard to beat it comes with a free uniform, and in reality, parents don't realize that that uniform probably cost the instructor $20. So it's like
Yeah.
they're making money hand over fist even if you don't come back.
Yeah, I'm going broke. I'm giving away for the kids. I give away a free jiu-jitsu gi, and that's
Oh, nice.
like
Yeah,
I'm going in the
that's a
hole,
little
baby.
pricey.
Yeah, yeah, I'm going in the hole. I used to do it for the adults too.
Yeah,
I'm like, no, adults, you have to buy your own jiu-jitsu gi.
right.
But I do think back fondly of my time in Taekwondo. I actually ran into my old instructor at a restaurant about 3-4 weeks ago. Just walked in, and him and his wife are sitting there, and it's always a pleasure to see those people that fed into your life, and you
Yeah.
shared sweat and blood. Like I said, the ITF style, the style I started in the ITF style was still at that time a really hard style.
Yeah.
Behind closed doors, sparring matches, crack ribs, bloody noses. We were going at it, you know. And I'm also of the age where I've seen Taekwondo come to the US. I did it for a month when I was like, kind of like you said, probably in the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s. And I remember the instructors at that time were hardened, leather-faced ex-Korean expats or special service expats. Those guys were like hard as they come. These guys had seen war. You know what I mean?
Right.
And what are your thoughts on the evolution of Taekwondo from then till now?
Yeah, I mean the Olympic sport's pretty radically different than the traditional background of Taekwondo, and so it's a weird dichotomy right now, especially in the United States. Like there's strange stuff going on in Korea, obviously, but that's strange in the United States because you have almost two halves of the same coin, and that the traditional aspect, for the most part, for most instructors, like the traditional part's where the money's at. Like if you want to make money as a gym owner, it's like it's belt tests, it's little kids after school programs, stuff like that. as a sport, it's pretty hard to make money in Taekwondo just because, you know, all right, my kid want my team wants to go compete at the German Open. It's like, all right, so I got to be gone for 5 days. Who's going to run the gym? Like, and then on top of it, depending on how you're charging your students, like that can be a rough hit on the pocketbook. And so like it's why I think you get these pockets of coaches that specialize in just the sport side of it. And it's like you get a couple of good ones and it's like, yeah, you can make money that way, but to get the credibility to get to that point, it's really hard for a lot of people. And so there's a pretty steep learning and financial investment curve to it for sure. And even then, like just because you try to head down that path doesn't mean you're necessarily a good coach. So, like from a competitive standpoint, because you'll see anybody that knows anything about Taekwondo, they'll see plenty of people complaining on Facebook about how, it doesn't look anything like it used to, and it's not. The martial art of it is gone. It's more of a sport, and it's like, yeah, 10,000%. Pre-2000, pre Taekwondo becoming an official core sport in the Olympics. So while it was still a demonstration sport, it was a bit of the Wild West in that you didn't have to go to an Olympic qualifier. Like, you could just kind of send people, right? And so Taekwondo gets into the Olympics, flash forward a couple of Olympic cycles, and it's like the IOC comes along and basically tells the WT like, "Hey, you guys have to figure out something if you want to stay in this, if you want to stay in the Olympics, because like most martial art competitions that are point centric, so not like, yeah, we're gonna go to till somebody drops. Like it's not like MMA in that regard. The IOC comes along and basically says either make substantial changes or you're out. And so, for people who don't know a lot about Taekwondo, in 2012, they World Taekwondo unveiled essentially what are electronic scoring systems. And like a 10,000-foot macro overview of it would be you wear these socks, you kick the chest guard. If the sock connects to if the sock touches the chest guard, it connects to the circuit, and as long as you kick hard enough, it theoretically scores. That's like I said, a super like 10,000-foot overview. That's not exactly how the systems work, but it's generally how people think of them. And so what you end up seeing in the last decade, 15 years, 12 years or whatever, you end up seeing what happens with any sport as it becomes professional. An athlete's job isn't to, like people aren't competing for a black belt. People are competing to win medals, to win money, to go to the Olympics, stuff like that. And so,
Prestige. Yeah.
yeah, I always tell people it's the equivalent. People complaining about Taekwondo not looking the same are the same people that complained when the NBA got the 3-point shot. They're like, oh, it's no longer tough. It's not the same thing. And it's like, no, it's different. It's just evolved. And so it's like people complain that it's predominantly front leg now, but it's again, professional athletes are smart at finding the path of least resistance to scoring. And it's like, why would I do a big risky shot when I know I can stay safe behind my front leg? And so it definitely gamified it. And that's 100% not for everybody. Like, I'll be the first one to tell you, I think Taekwondo back in the day, in a lot of ways, was more entertaining to watch because you'd see more crazy things. But the problem is, the same people that are like vehemently anti how it is today are the same people that like to forget the problems that got us in this situation to begin with. The problem that got us into this situation is the IOC would see two people go at it. There's no clear winner because the points aren't really ironed out that well. Like, oh yeah, this guy hit, but he hit too, but they only gave red a point. And it was like, it became abundantly clear that winners were largely picked by who, what country you were wearing on your uniform. And so it's like everybody that wants to do the like, it's not the same anymore, also wants to forget how corrupt the competitive process was. And so it's a real interesting dichotomy that you ask those same people like, okay, so you want to go back to the way it was, and they do the, well, I don't know about that. And it's like, what I tell people is I don't have any interest in the sport of curling. You would be shocked at how little curling comes up in my day-to-day conversation. But with some of these people, they do the like, I want to say nothing good about Taekwondo. And it's like, if you don't like it, you don't have to watch it. You don't have to do it. Like there are other sports, head on out kind of a thing. So it definitely the last 20 years has seen the professionalization and gamification, for lack of a better way to put it, for the sport.
Okay. Well, let's go back a second for your and to your journey. So you're a kid, you do well in did you say nationals? You made to the nationals and kick butt over there. Okay, what's next for you?
Um, first time I won nationals. When I made the junior team, I got to go to the Junior World Championships in Greece. At the time when I won, the interesting part about it was like I didn't even know there was a national team. I thought nationals was it, and it was like I won a gold medal. And as I'm walking back over, my coach is like high fives, like great, you get to go to Junior World Championships. You're the national team member, and I'm like, oh, what's that? And he's like, it's like a world championships. Like each country sends one person per weight division. And what was really interesting about it is um, it's the gross misunderstanding of how talented you are until you get into that bigger pond.
There's
Um,
levels to this game, yeah.
yeah, exactly. I go all the way to Greece. I draw my first match is this kid from Korea who's on both the junior and the senior national team. Like I just turned 14. This kid was like, days from turning 18 basically. And this dude in my entire career, I've never been beat up that bad. And it was like that guy beat me like a drum for a solid 6 minutes kind of a thing. It was just public execution. And I remember whenever I came home, my parents did the like, well, my parents and my coach basically had the conversation of like, hey, look, like you've made a national team. If you call it a day, nobody's gonna say a thing. And I just remember as a 14-year-old kid just getting really pissed off about it, being like, no, 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 no. Like I'm just because I didn't know what I was getting into doesn't mean I can't handle this. And you talk to anybody, my wife included, I've got a pretty rebellious streak in me in that not in a negative way, but in a somebody tells me I can't do something, like the first thing I want to do is go, all right, I'm going to prove this person wrong. And so it was one of those. I had a national team coach at that event tell me that it would be a cold day in hell before I'd ever make the Olympic Games. I needed to cut weight. I needed to move out to train in his gym in Florida, just the usual con game that a lot of these sleazy guys try and pull. And what's funny about it is like me and one of my friends talk about regularly about how we like owe that guy a bottle of champagne because we basically spent our entire careers trying to prove him wrong.
Yeah.
And so it was one of those like getting getting beat that bad in Greece was probably the best thing that ever happened to me from a career standpoint.
And so then you come home, you're 14, just got beat up. You decide, I'm not going to give up. Quick side question. Your parents, it seems to be a through line with your parents that they're like, hey, we can do something else. Do you think they were actively trying to discourage you, or they were just looking out for you? Or wanted your what do you think their motivation
Yeah.
was?
Oh, 100% looking out for me because at the end of the day, nobody likes to see their kid be disappointed. And it's like,
Yeah.
and with the best of intention, everybody wants their kids to have like the smoothest ride. And that's just not the way life goes. And uh, I mean, my mom has her master's in finance. She worked for the largest company in the world in their legal department for 20 years. My dad owns his own architecture firm, like very, very well educated people. My mom played basketball in college. Um, and my dad was a competitive power lifter. And so like they knew the sport side of it, but they also came from that time period where it was very like, um, yeah, sports are a means to an end. There's something you do while you're in school, and then the second you're done with school, like, all right, we move into the corporate world kind of a thing, or we go on to get our masters. And so both parents very well educated. Both parents put themselves through college, working nights. And so like not family that's not afraid of hard work for sure. But like I said, you want the best for your kids. You want them to be naturally good at everything. And so it was one of those, it was, let's put it this way. The second I told them I wanted to keep doing it, it was okay, let's figure out how do we get you better? How do we get you where
That's
you
awesome.
need to go? And so it was one of those,
Yeah.
I think, asking if I wanted to move on from a healthy perspective of they just saw their 14-year-old get a really nasty concussion. Like, why would I want my kid to keep doing this?
Oh yeah, that's serious. Yeah, that's definitely.
Yeah.
No, I hear you. I just ask because as a gym owner, you get kids that come in and they're really good. and they're excited, and it seems like the parents are trying to back out. They're just kind of tired of
Right.
lugging their kid their kid back and
Yeah,
forth.
100%.
You know what I mean? It's like, I don't think
Yep.
your kid's tired of it. You're tired of it. So I was just
Yeah,
curious.
absolutely.
But so you're 14. What do you do to up your game?
Bunch of stuff. Started doing strength and conditioning, found a really good strength and conditioning coach. Basically between 2002 and 2004 World Championships, I collectively ran 3 miles every day, 5 days a week before going to school for a solid 2 years straight. And um, let's put it this way, in that 2 years, I know for a fact that I ran that 3 mile run every day because I know that I did it on Christmas both years. I know that I did it on my birthday, like no days out, like just again, that rebellious streak. I was just pissed, hated losing that bad. Went and fought basically every tournament that I could. Ended up in 2004 going back, fighting 5 matches at Junior World Championships and actually getting a bronze. And so there was like a real um, cathartic, for lack of a better way to put it, payoff at the end of that. But there's levels to it because I mean, the first time I made a senior team, I get taken to World Cup. I end up drawing like a two-time world medalist my first match. Don't get beat bad by any stretch. Lost like 3-2, which is a great score for a 17-year-old kid. But it was one of those every step in the career was like, oh, it's gonna take a double down. Like I gotta go even bigger, even harder, train even smarter. The good part is having very well educated parents, who did things like having to put themselves through college. They instilled in me the understanding that like, oh, hey, it might not just be work harder. Like, let's figure out how to like what are you missing? Let's figure out the missing elements and let's target those. And so, credit where credit's due with my parents of like, oh no, they were the brains behind the operation for a long time, and that yeah, we can send you to the German Open, but there's nobody registered. Why wouldn't we send you to this tournament? And so, Matt, entirety of my career largely due to my parents being um, taking their education and taking an analytical approach to getting me better at a sport.
Your parents seem to keep coming up, man. They're a big part of your life, it seems, huh?
Yeah, for sure. It's one of those uh, might be tied with my wife now as far as who's my biggest fan, but it's that's one of those. I'm sure my mom would be happy to have an argument of who's a bigger fan of me, her or my wife. So
Dude, that's awesome. You're a blessed man if you got two
yeah,
beautiful women in your life fighting over who loves you the most, so that's
yeah,
definitely a good thing. Now, at this point in your career, you're going, what are you, 16, 17?
yeah.
My guess is you're no longer with your original instructor. Maybe you've gone on and changed instructors a few times, a more competitive, sport focused school, or what?
Yeah, so actually my coach that I started with made the junior team back in the 80s, and so he had a little bit of an understanding about it. Had some bad luck in his career, had a knee surgery that basically went amok, and so like kind of ended his career early. Like he fought at the 88 Olympic trials. I'm pretty sure he fought at the 92 Olympic trials, so quality competitor. I did have two other coaches. I trained with a coach named Scott Fuji for a few years in LA, and then I trained with a coach named Jason Poos in Oklahoma City for a few years. But I started the overwhelming majority of my career was with a guy named Jeff Pennerock in Dallas, who that's who I spent the start of my career with. Then I went to college in California, and that's who I actually came back to him for the last 5 years of my career. So the overwhelming majority of the time, he's been the one sitting in my chair.
And where's he at? You said California?
Dallas, Texas.
Dallas. Okay. Dallas is a good Taekwondo scene. I mean,
Yeah, yeah. Actually, a surprising little talent hotbed.
okay. So when does the Olympics come in the picture?
Yeah.
Is there a few steps I'm missing in this journey?
Yeah, for sure. I was on the senior team for a handful of years. Kind of getting more experience, working my way up the ladder. Um, in 2012, I wouldn't say there was a great chance that my weight division was going to be selected for the games for Team USA, but there was a decent chance. I needed in 2011 to, or I needed in 2009, 2010, and 2011 to like basically go perform well. Um, I ended up blowing out my Achilles about a week before team trials for 2009 Worlds, I think it was. And it just kind of it ruined the whole quad because I went and had a they reattached my Achilles surgically, and about a week after the surgery, I slipped on my crutch and stepped on my foot and re-ruptured my Achilles. And so within 2 weeks, I had to have a second Achilles surgery. That one they had to do a cadaver graft, and so massive damage. Basically, got told there was a good chance I'd never walk again, or I'd never run again, let alone compete. Did everything that I could from a rehab perspective. Went and did hyperbaric chamber sessions, dry needling, cupping, you name it, I did it basically for about 6 months. And from the second surgery to being back in competition was 6 months to the day. But that pretty much destroyed that quad because, at that point I'm out for a year essentially from major competitions because I got to requalify, I got to remake the team, all that stuff. So I'm out for basically a year. Ruined that quad. Like I said, was there a good chance I was going to get picked for 2012? Probably not. The two coaches didn't like me. So it just probably wasn't going to happen. But
Were those two coaches
the
from the Houston area?
no, 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 no.
Okay.
Well, one of them's from the Houston area. One of them's from Florida.
Okay. Yeah.
Um,
I believe I know who you're talking
yeah,
about.
and yeah, it's one of those things. It's like Candyman. You don't say their names, otherwise they suddenly appear behind you and try and attack you. Um, but so like I said, not a great chance in 2012. 2012, I was kind of going. It was right when they unveiled the world ranking system, and I just went, you know what? If I'm never going to make it to the Olympics, I want to be number one in the world before I retire. Like I want at least to have that accolade, and so I basically started running around fighting all these major events to get points to try and get my ranking up, unbeknownst to me that over the next 4 years those ranking points would suddenly matter because they'd
Yeah.
unveil an invitation Grand Prix circuit that you had to be in the top 32 to get into the events. And so it was one of those. I tell everybody it's a credit to the big man upstairs for the divine inspiration because I did it out of sheer like, well, if I'm not going to get to go to the Olympics, I just want to do this. And that pursuit, though, is definitely what set me up to have enough ranking points to be in the right position to get to the 2016 games. And so it was one of those, ended up getting there because I finally gave up on it, basically.
Sounds kind of biblical. You had to
Yeah.
let that thing die, so God could give it new life.
Yeah, 100%. Oh, it's I don't like to hammer it down people's throats. I've always been told that when it comes to sharing your faith, there's people that are hammers and there are people that are screwdrivers, and it's like not every situation needs a hammer, not every situation needs a screwdriver, vice versa. And it's like try to, and don't get me wrong, I'll be the first one to tell you I'm a big moron that screws things up all the time, but try to try to stick to the golden rule of doing unto others. And so it's like, I try to live my life in a way that makes other people ask what's different about me. Like I said, complete idiot. I curse a lot. I get mad in traffic. Like I mess things up constantly. But yeah, I'm super quick to tell people the Olympic Games was 100% a God thing because it just didn't come down to something that I did.
Yeah. And so what was that Olympic experience like?
So I ended up losing my first match at the
Well,
Olympics, and
actually, let's
what's
go to the
funny,
qualifiers. Let's go to the qualifiers.
yeah,
How'd you do in the Olympic qualifier?
yeah, qualified, obviously. The interesting part about it that I always found to be poetic was the fact that that coach from Florida that told me, "Oh, cold day in hell before you ever make it to the Olympics. If you don't cut weight, you don't come out here and train." His shtick that he pulls on everybody.
For just
Um,
$5,000
yeah,
a
yeah,
quarter. Yeah.
exactly. But what's funny about it is the Olympic qualification event. My qualifier date was on my birthday, and I remember telling my then girlfriend, she's now my wife. I remember telling my girlfriend, My parents, my coach is like, oh, this is either going to be the best birthday I've ever had, or this is going to be the worst birthday I've ever had. Um, it was in Aguas Calientes, Mexico, which I mean, roughly translated is like hot water Mexico, which I found ironic, especially since the day before the Olympic qualifier, it snowed there for the first time in 32 years. To which I immediately took that as like, oh, it'll be a cold day in hell before I make the Olympic team. The second it started snowing in a place called Hot Water, I was like, oh, that's, yeah, I'm 100% doing this. And so wildly confident the next day. Beat a kid from Ecuador that had beaten me a handful of times. Had a bye because I was high seeded, and then had to beat a Canadian that I'd lost to a couple of times in semifinals, and relatively close matches the whole day. But I mean, it's one of those when you have that maybe insane, I don't know, but divinely inspired belief that like, oh no, it's going to work out today. Like I had no doubt that entire day that I was going to qualify for the games.
And when they raised your hand and you knew you were going to the Olympics, how did that feel?
A little bit underwhelming, to tell you the truth. What I always tell people is they think it's like this transformative experience of like, oh, one day I'm going to be an Olympian. And the irony is, for about 10 minutes, I was stoked. Like, oh, this is the greatest day ever. But at the end of that 10 minutes, then it was, okay, now I got a job to do. Like I did the thing that I was supposed to. Now I get to go take a shot at the title, basically. And so what I tell people is being an Olympian is a day in, day out practice. Like you don't, the bell doesn't ring and you're not suddenly an Olympian. Like, from a technical standpoint, you are, but I've never met somebody who's qualified for the games that was like they weren't ready for it, or you know what, I'm just gonna go out there and shoot my shot. Like to put it in perspective, the cool runnings thing doesn't really happen. Like people don't just suddenly show up at the Olympics. Like no, that qualifying for the Olympic Games was 20 years in the making for me. And so it was one of those people can look at it and easily do it was an overnight success. There's no such thing as overnight successes in most sports. It's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that people don't see on the back end.
I would say one thing though. I would say that when they make the movie, who knows, maybe Derrick Fury will direct the Stephen Lambdin story. And
I'm all about it.
one quick note what we would change is when you get your hand raised in the trials, you're going to the Olympics. The guy you fought was the kid that beat you up in Greece. We'll make him that character. You know what I mean?
It would either be the kid that beat me up in Greece or that coach from Florida. Like there's
he's in the trial.
In between.
He's coaching. Yeah. He's coaching the kid from Greece. We'll do it like
100%.
That. Yeah. So then you get to the Olympics. That walk when everybody walks out in the opening ceremony, you had to cry, right? That's incredible.
Oh, yeah, I didn't cry. I mean, I viewed it very much as a lottery ticket in the sense that there were other athletes who were better than me. One of my oldest friends in the sport, Tim Thackeray, who was arguably 10 times the athlete I was and way more talented at Taekwondo, never got his shot at the games. Like he didn't get to go to a games. And so I went in very much with the understanding that this is a lottery ticket. And so I'm going to be grateful every single day. And what's funny about it is there were a couple of people on our team in 2016 that just like nothing was ever good enough. Like, oh, this apparel sucks. Oh, the athlete village, it's terrible. The food's awful. And it was like, they just had the worst time in Rio. I'm going to get Zika. I know I am. And it was like, we were there for 21 or 22 days, including closing and opening ceremonies. And like, I had the best time, not in an unprofessional way. Like I was there for training. I was there on a mission, but it was like, I was happy at every single training session. I woke up with a smile on my face. And what I like to tell people is like, I always ask them like, oh, I lost my first match at the games. How well do you think I slept that night? And without fail, everybody does the like, oh, you had to have slept terrible. And it was like, I slept like a baby because it was one of those, I was super grateful to be there. I knew it was a blessing. But then on top of it, leading up to the games, I did everything that I could. In retrospect, there was nothing I could have done different training wise. And like, hey, the guy was just better than me that day. Right? Yeah, it is what it is. And so it was like, I got back to the village that night and I slept like 13 hours just from the stress and the relief and all of that stuff. And so it was one of those, people always ask too about opening ceremonies, like, what was that like? And I've been to opening ceremonies at things like Pan Am Games, World University Games, big events, soccer stadiums full of people. And I like to tell people the Olympic opening ceremonies is just as cool as you'd hope it would be. And it was like, I went in a little bit, that was the one thing I was a little jaded about, of like, oh, opening ceremonies, I've done these before, it's not going to be that cool. And it was like, oh, no, 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 I was a stone's throw from Michael Phelps and like great Olympians. And so it was one of those, it was absolutely life-defining experience for sure.
Is there one moment of that experience that stands out?
Yeah, off the top of my head, just getting to put on that Team USA uniform and getting to walk into the stadium in a stadium full of people, whether they're cheering for you or against you, just that environment, see the Olympic rings, everything like that. From a non-competition standpoint, showing up at the games and before showing up at the games, you always, in the past, you would go through what they call staging. So we all met in Houston, and in Houston it's like all of Team USA. You got your kit, your apparel, they took your official Olympic portrait, everything like that. Those are probably the two that like jump out at me the most. And from a personal perspective, just even after I lost, getting to go out in front of the stadium and like my whole family, my girlfriend, now wife there, my coaches, everything like that. Just getting to hang out with them at the Olympic Games very much felt like, it's everybody on this team's, it's a reward for everybody. It's not just for me.
Man. And so, excuse me, going to the Olympics and coming back, did it change your training? Did it change your perspective? I have to think that going through that's the highest. People dream of, and people even talk about the high. I compete at the highest level of competition, bro. Bro. Yeah. The Olympics truly is the highest level of competition. How did you come out different on the other side?
Yeah, so it's actually a crazy amount of pressure, like unsurprisingly crazy amount of pressure, because it's like there's media, everybody wants to talk to you, like people are offering you money for all sorts of deals, like crazy amount of attention. And the U.S. Olympic Committee actually does a really cool thing where they offer a program for athletes post Olympics, and the program's usually called something along the lines of like post games blues. Because what most people don't realize is like you're getting these massive dopamine kicks every day, and people are telling you you're the greatest thing in the universe, greatest thing in the universe, greatest thing in the universe. And then the second you're done competing, even if you won a gold medal and you get a couple extra days, it's like the best thing I ever heard. We were at the Nike Hospitality House in Rio, and an employee with Nike was there, and I was asking him general questions, not trying to get a sponsorship or anything. I just wanted to know about Nike. And I was asking him questions, and one of the things that he said to me was like, "Do you know how many Olympic bronze medalists and gold, silver medalists and gold medalists there are?" And I go, I don't know. And he knew the number off the top of his head, and he goes, "Yeah, it's absolutely special to everybody around you." And he goes, from a competitive sport standpoint, he goes, "It's not that special." He goes, "2 years from now, we'll have a whole litany of new Olympic medalists from the Winter Games, and then 2 years from then, and then 2 years from then, and then 2 years from then." And so it was this weird realization of the corporate side of the Olympics.
Yeah.
They only care about what it looks like on TV. And if it's not on the cameras, the International Olympic Committee does not care. And so it was a weird, like I said, the USOPC does a cool thing. It's the post Olympics blues. And it's literally just an education module on like, oh, it doesn't matter if you won a gold medal, if you lost your first match, if you blew out your knee. Most athletes get depressed after the games because there's just this massive drop of attention. Like suddenly you're not the most important person in the world. The next group is. And so it was one of those, between that and the goal was making it to 2020. The goal was making it to 2020. And so it just became like one of my coaches, Tim, basically told me, he's like, "Look, man, there's a target on your back now." He goes, "Now if you lose," he goes, "even if it doesn't make a difference to you, in somebody else's mind, they're going to go, I just beat an Olympian." He goes,
Absolutely.
"Oh, yeah. If you beat somebody, well, of course he won. He's supposed to be an Olympian." He goes, "Now, what I tell all of my athletes now is like, major success at the games does one of two things. It does two things. It's like all your successes are turned down by 25%. Like nobody cares. You're an Olympian. You're supposed to be amazing. All your failures are amplified by 1,000%. Like, this Olympian dropped an F-bomb in public, and it's like all of a sudden it's on BuzzFeed, and you're like, is that really that important? Like, no, 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 these are people, but it's the understanding that most people don't get to meet one Olympian, let alone a group of Olympians. And so it's the um, gross simplification of your wins and the gross exaggeration of your failures. And so it's like that, and then going into that 2020 games with that knowledge of like, oh, everybody's got an axe to grind, everybody wants to beat me. And it's like, did it probably save me from losing some matches? Yeah. Did I still lose matches? Yeah, absolutely. And you quickly realize that I lost to somebody and they're happy they beat an Olympian, and you go like, yeah, okay, I don't care. And so it's one of those, it takes a little bit to get over, but there's that initial, like, I can't lose, I'm an Olympian. Like, that's setting yourself up for failure.
And so when did you pivot into coaching?
Um, 20 right before the breakout of COVID. So I actually do strength and conditioning for remote clients all around the world right now. But I started as the strength coach. Essentially, there was an NGB in Canada that wanted to hire me as their team strength coach. USA Taekwondo found out about it and basically said like, "Oh, hang on one sec. Like, let me see. Let us get a chance with you," kind of a thing. I'd always rather represent Team USA, and so like, hey, I'm gonna go the USA route. Like, thank you, Canada. Thank you to this specific NGB that'll remain anonymous because I do feel bad that I turned down their offer. But end up moving to Colorado Springs. This is right after COVID to start working as the strength and conditioning coach. Paul Green and Gareth Brown are Gareth's the head coach. Paul's the coaching director for USA Taekwondo. Long story short, I kind of started lending a hand in the sessions, like covering a session here and there, a kicking session, not just the strength and conditioning. Gareth's going to be out of town. Okay, yeah, I'll run the session. And so it slowly started building from there. And again, the complete God thing, because it was like within a year and a half, just because of right time, right place, and God putting me where He wanted me. It was like within a year and a half, I went from being the strength and conditioning coach to one of the high performance directors for USA Taekwondo and one of the National Academy coaches, which then led to two of my athletes qualifying for the 2024 games. And so it was like in a matter of less than 5 years, in less than 4 years, I think like three and a half, I went from athlete to competing, or athlete competing to coaching at an Olympic Games, which is kind of relatively unheard of.
How'd that feel being there as a coach?
So a different pressure in the sense that I have to use my words to try and get a gold medal, which is not what I'm used to. But the good part about it is right coach at the right time, in the sense that the two athletes that I coached at the Olympic Games, Jonathan Healy, so he's heavyweight, and then Faith Dillon, which is a 57 kilogram competitor, both of them honestly the right temperaments for how I like to coach. The best example about all of this is because it's not like I knew they were going to make it. I got assigned them the credit that I'll give. I give tremendous amounts of credit to Paul and Gareth because they essentially took a chance on me. Like they knew I was a decent competitor. They didn't, for all they knew, I was going to be a terrible coach. But it was like credit where credit's due with Gareth. There's a handful of athletes that he was like, look, this athlete has potential. I don't think my style really fits this person. Why don't you give this person a try? And so, like, Faith and John just happened to be two of those athletes. And it was like, like I said, credit where credit's due. And that Gareth is such a good coach and he cares so much about getting people on the medal stand for the Olympics that he's like, oh, yeah, I'm going to let you coach these athletes because even if they win and I'm not in their chair, it's a win for the program. Like, oh, and hey, you go coach somebody to an Olympic gold medal, then oh, hey, it's a win for me because I've helped teach you how to coach. And so it was one of those like very much standing on the shoulders of giants. Like both of them have produced Olympic medals, world medals left and right in their athletes, and like at the end of the day, they took a chance by allowing me to do it, and it's paid off pretty well. So
How'd they do in the Olympics?
Um, Gareth, so we had four total athletes: CJ, Christina, Faith, and John. CJ came in fourth. Christina came in third. So Christina got a bronze medal. Faith came in ninth, I believe, and I want to say, and Jonathan lost in quarterfinals. So when you compare it to the last couple of Olympic cycles, like only one medal, but overall team performance was much better. Like the last couple of Olympic games, we've had a bulk of the athletes lose like their first or second round. And so net gain overall, which is good because all four of those athletes are products of the National Academy and like our talent identification process. And so it's a real testimony to the system that Paul, Gareth, and myself are trying to implement in Charlotte.
Who's the powerhouse still? Is it still Korea?
Yeah, for sure. But it's the cool part about the electronic system is the electronic system is terrible, like, but it works the same for everybody for the most part. And so it's like Korea, Turkey, GB, like the UK's great. Uzbekistan has a lot of good players. The because it's an electronic system, it kind of didn't even the playing field, but it sucks the same for everybody. So it gives a lot of other countries good opportunity if they're willing to invest in the sport.
So what's next for you?
Yeah, right now we're prepping our athletes for the 2025 World Championships in Wuxi, China. Unfortunately, the nature of high performance sport, there's always another big game right around the corner. And so it's like, prep for World Championships next year, get ready for Pan Am Games a couple years after that, and then Los Angeles hosts the next Olympics, and so everybody wants to be at the home games.
I do have, excuse me, I do have a question for you as a martial artist. This podcast I interview mostly martial artists, and I remember a quick conversation I had with you. When I met you briefly, probably 5 or 6 years ago, and you were saying Taekwondo was kind of in a place at that point where they were trying to figure out if they're going to be a martial art or a sport.
Yeah.
And like I said, we spoke briefly, but as a person who came up in Taekwondo myself, I can relate. And where do you think we're at now with that?
Same problem. Mainly because World Taekwondo doesn't really know what it wants to be. In the sense that like right now, this weekend, I think they're having like the first ever virtual Taekwondo championships. And it's like they got the headsets and you can like fight somebody virtually. And it's like, unfortunately, I think in a lot of ways, it's the problem with any echo chamber. Like you have a group of people that don't take feedback from coaches, athletes, anything like that. And so rather than fix a couple of fundamental problems that like, for example, with the electronic system, there's not a lot of scoring going on. The games are really low scoring. Okay, well, the power threshold's really high for most divisions. How about you just knock that down a few notches? You'll see more scoring at events. Rather than take a simple approach like that, they'll have, okay, we're going to put in a rule that you have to kick at least every 5 seconds. It's like, it's not wrong. It's just the problem is a lot of the times the people that are choosing what rules get implemented are fixing symptoms and not the actual problem. And so I think we're still in that same spot. Like everybody's trying to figure out, where the puck is going to be rather than playing the game that's actually in front of them. And so I'm not saying I have all the answers. I don't like there's quite a few problems, but it's like most sports. There's always that itch to improve. There's always that itch to, get the sport to the next level. It's just a question of what's it going to be.
Now, in your martial arts journey, have you ever cross-trained, done some judo, some Brazilian jiu-jitsu, anything at all? It's all been
No, not
Taekwondo.
really. Yeah, I was always high enough level in Taekwondo that honestly, man, like I love a lot of other martial arts. Like I'll watch MMA, I'll watch Jiu-Jitsu. Judo is a blast to watch. The
Yeah.
problem is I always did that like I'm worried I'm going to go try judo. Somebody's going to throw me and I'm going to mess up my shoulder and then I can't fight next week. And so it was one of those I was always too focused on taekwondo. And now that I'm not competing, I'm finally to that stage where my knees don't hurt every day. And it's like now I don't particularly want to go start jujitsu where there's a chance that like don't get me wrong, I love the concept of the challenge of like starting as a beginner in it.
Yeah.
Because I think there's great value in the struggle as a beginner, but it's just one of those
How old are you now?
36, about to be 37 in a couple months. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's one of those I might try it at some point, try a different sport at some point, but I like my knees and my elbows feeling good right now, and it's hard to want to risk that.
Understood. Jiu-jitsu will test your knees.
Yeah,
Not like one bit, because I do have some injuries that came from judo. But
yeah,
jiu-jitsu, it's cumulative over years. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
for sure.
It's like, oh, by
Something
the time
about
you're a
something
brown belt,
about
you're
somebody
like, oh,
strangling you. Yeah,
yeah, it will just the stress you put on everything. Um,
yeah, I'm sure.
but sure is a lot of fun. And so is, my time in Taekwondo. It's so much fun back in the day. Um,
Yeah.
if you were going to recommend to a mom looking for a martial art, would you still recommend in current year, hey, try Taekwondo?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I honestly, you would think as the director of athletic development for a national governing body for the sport of Taekwondo, I'd be like, Taekwondo 100%. What I always tell parents is like, oh, go where your kid's interested. Like if your kid's interested in jujitsu, absolutely take them to jujitsu because like nothing quite scratches the itch of like, oh yeah, I'm really interested in Taekwondo, so I put my kid in judo. It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
the kid will have fun, everything like that, but take the kid where they're interested. They want to strangle somebody, stick them in jujitsu. They want to kick somebody in the face, put them in taekwondo. Like take them where they're interested.
Yeah. If they want to do both, bring them to Axiom Jiu-Jitsu and MMA in Missouri City, Texas. Coach Derrick Furiel. Teach
There
them
you go.
everything.
Yeah, 100%.
But excuse me. Do you have any funny and or interesting, doesn't have to be funny, or interesting story that's happened along your journey?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. All you'd really have to do is ask, like, "Hey, tell me a funny story from this trip," and I guarantee you, there's wild things that have happened on every single trip. One of the things that I always like to talk about is like one of the stories I always like to tell is so I'm getting interviewed by MSNBC for some random show on uh, some random finance show. They're doing like a quick minute with an Olympian kind of a thing, and so they're doing rapid fire questions. Who's your favorite athlete? Who's this? Blah 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 blah. At the end of it, and this is obviously what pre what has happened. But at the end of it, they go, "Oh, you're 90 years old. They decide to do a biopic about you. Like, who's gonna play you?" And I went like, "Ah, man, I don't know." And I went, "It'd have to be an older guy at this point, like brown hair. Who's a good actor?" And I go, "I don't know, like Kevin Spacey or something." And to which, at the time, like, "Oh yeah, Academy Award winner, like, yeah, he's great." I tried so hard to find this interview because I think it's so funny that like, who's your favorite comedian? Bill Cosby. Like, it just could
Who's
not have been a worse, couldn't have been a worse pick in retrospect. But like,
your favorite
I always
filmmaker?
tell
Harvey
people,
Weinstein.
yeah, it's just the worst pick you could possibly make. And that's the problem with a random draw like that. Realistically, what's funny about it is I don't even know why I picked him. It was just one of those like rapid fire questions. But that's one of my favorite like classic blunders that I've done.
Now we're wrapping up here, but I always ask everyone, with your journey in martial arts and in life and your faith, um, what would the advice you would want to give to someone starting out in the martial arts today?
Yeah, don't give up. Like I hate it because it's cliche and it sounds like every David Goggins post you see is like, don't give up, keep it. Like I hate it because it's so cliche, but it's like it is like I've never been the best athlete. I've never been the fastest, the strongest. I made it to the Olympics because I just didn't quit. And it's like, that's not necessarily true for everybody, but you would be astonished whether it's work, sport, whatever it is, like you can make it so much further than you think you can just by not quitting. And it's like most people quit right before they get to the good stuff. And it's like, oh man, just you don't have to it's the lamp that lights in front of your feet, right? Like you don't have to see the whole race. All you have to do is see the steps in front of you and make the best decision possible. And it's like, if you don't quit, you can achieve really amazing things in this life.
Well, so where can people connect with you? Say they want to bring you out for a seminar, or they just want to say,
Yeah.
hey, you influenced my life. How can they reach you?
You can pretty much find me on all social media at Stephen Lambdin. It's just my name, StephenLambdin. Instagram, pretty much everything but Twitter or X, whatever we call it nowadays. But Instagram, Facebook, yeah, I'm like the world's easiest Olympian to get a hold of because I like answering people's questions and helping people on their journey.
Well, you've helped me out today, and I enjoyed having you. Hopefully our paths will cross again one day, my friend.
No, yeah, I appreciate you having me on.
All right, man. I'll catch up with you.
Cool. Take it easy, dude.
And that brings us to the end of another episode of FURYCAST. I want to give a big shout out to Olympian Stephen Lambdin for coming on the show and sharing his story today. If you want to connect with him, maybe have him come out to do a seminar at your school, his links are in the description. And make sure you show your boy Derrick Fury some love by joining the mailing list for my new graphic novel, The Gentleman's Guild, art by E. by Canales. That's right, E. by Canales. The link is in the description. And don't forget to watch my feature film, Lion Killer. That's right, I made a movie. It stars Regina Ting-Chen, who's currently on season 4 of Stranger Things. You can watch it on Amazon Prime, Tubi TV, Freevee. There's even a full Spanish dub. And thanks again for watching FURYCAST. Don't forget to like this video. Help me boost the algorithm by commenting down below. You can also share this video on your social media platforms, subscribe, and yes, even smash the bell so you can be notified every time I drop a new FURYCAST video. This is Derrick Fury. Until next time,